Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's 6 p.m. time for the news bulletin on Channel 2. I am Bethha and starting off with the main headlines of the day. Welcome back, the news in full. President Fattah al-Sisi arrived today in Russia, where he takes part in the 80th anniversary of the end of World War II. The president's participation in the commemoration, which falls on May 9th, came upon an invitation by Russian President Vladimir Putin. Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli said today that Egypt attaches a top priority to the health file and exerts utmost effort for providing all the resources needed to develop medical facilities and to build new ones nationwide. The Prime Minister made these remarks in an inspection tour at a large number of new and renovated medical facilities in Al-Gharbiya Governorate. Madbouli pointed out that the Delta City comprises 43 state-affiliated hospitals, saying that the state is currently working to electronize the dialysis system to include 60,000 patients. He added that continued efforts are being also exerted to end the surgeries waiting lists. The tour also included stops at sound development and services projects, among which is a housing project for low-income people and a water treatment station. The Prime Minister also inspected the pace of work at Al Sayyid Al Badawi Mosque and its surroundings, currently under renovation and maintenance. On behalf of President Fattah al-Sisi, Minister of Foreign Immigration and Expatriates Affairs Badr Abdelati today took part virtually in the second session of the Third African High-Level Forum on South-South and Triangular Cooperation for Sustainable Development. Egypt's top diplomat expressed appreciation for efforts of the African peer review mechanism in firming the sound governance in the continent. Abdelati noted that the current international system witnesses a turning point amid accelerating tensions and unprecedented global challenges. He asserted the dire need to enhance international cooperation mechanism and the multilateral international system for combating such cross-border challenges in an active and more inclusive way. The forum runs on May 7 to 9th in Sierra Leone. Israeli occupation forces intensified their strikes on the Gaza Strip and continued conducting massacres against civilians, with Palestinian medical sources reporting that at least 14 Palestinians were killed since dawn. Meanwhile, the UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees said that Israeli occupation troops closed 3 of its schools in East-occupied Al-Quds month after a ban on its activities took effect. UNRWA's director of the West Bank said that heavily armed forces surrounded 3 UNRWA schools in East Shorafat camp, calling the event a traumatizing experience for young children who are at immediate risk of losing their access to education. The Palestinian Civil Defense Agency said today that a lack of fuel had forced 3/4 of its emergency vehicles to stop operating more than 2 months into an Israeli occupation aid blockade. The agency added that its first responders were also facing severe shortage of electric generators and oxygen devices. Separately, dozens of community kitchens in Gaza shut their doors due to a lack of supplies. The move followed hours after the U.S.-based World Central Kitchen charity announced that it had run out of the ingredients necessary to provide much-needed meals and had been prevented by the occupation troops from bringing in aid. The United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, Volker Turk, voiced deep concern that the Israeli occupation plans to expand their offensive in Gaza aim to create conditions threatening Palestinians' continued existence in the territory. Turk warned that stepping up the Israeli occupation offensive would only compound the misery and suffering inflicted by the complete blockade on the entry of basic goods for almost 9 weeks now. The Israeli Occupation Authority has called out tens of thousands of reservists for an expanded offensive in the Gaza Strip. Lebanese official media said that Israeli occupation troops conducted heavy airstrikes on the south today, the latest raised despite November ceasefire between the occupation authority and Hezbollah group. Lebanon said that Israeli occupation warplanes carried out a wide-scale area aggression on the Labatia region, killing 1 civilian and wounded 8 others. Israeli occupation troops have continued to launch strikes in Lebanon despite the truce, which sought to hold more than a year of flagrant aggression in Lebanon. The United Nations welcomed the ceasefire between Yemen Houthi group and the United States, which ends weeks of intense U.S. strikes that targeted Houthi positions in Yemen, hailing efforts by the Sultanate of Oman regarding the agreement. The United States and Yemen Houthi have agreed a ceasefire, saying the deal would ensure freedom of navigation in the Red Sea. The Omani foreign minister has said that following recent discussions and contacts with the aim of de-escalation, efforts have resulted in a ceasefire agreement between the two sides. And Pakistan said today that India fired attack drones into the country, wounding 4 soldiers, as India accused its neighbor of attempting its own attack as tensions soared between the nuclear-armed rivals, where powers from the U.S. to Russia and China have called for calm in one of the world's most dangerous and most populated nuclear flashpoint regions. We have more details in the following report.
India and Pakistan soldiers exchanged gunfire overnight in Kashmir on Thursday, a day after the worst violence between the nuclear-armed rivals in 2 decades. Pakistani Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif vowed to retaliate after India launched deadly missile strikes on Wednesday morning, with days of repeated gunfire along their border escalating into artillery shelling. India said it had destroyed 9 terrorist camps in Pakistan in focused, measured and non-escalatory strikes, 2 weeks after New Delhi blamed Islamabad for backing an attack on tourists in the Indian-administered side of disputed Kashmir, a charge Pakistan denies. At least 45 deaths have been reported from both sides of the border following Wednesday's violence, including children. Islamabad said 31 civilians were killed by Indian strikes and firing along the border. New Delhi said 13 civilians and soldiers have been killed by Pakistani fire. Pakistani's military also said 5 Indian jets have been downed across the border, but New Delhi has not responded to the claims. And Indian senior security sources said that 5 jets had crashed on home territory. India's army on Thursday morning reported firing small arms and artillery guns in multiple sites overnight, adding that its soldiers had responded proportionally. India and Pakistan have fought multiple times since the violent end of British rule in 1947, when colonial officers drew straight-line borders on maps to partition the nation's dividing communities.
And Deputy Prime Minister for Industrial Development, Minister of Industry and Transportation, Kamil Al-Wazir, said that the Egyptian-French ties witnessed cooperation in various aspects, not only the political one. The remarks were made as Al-Wazir was addressing the inaugural session of the Regional Economic Forum organized by France and took place in Cairo. The minister said that his ministry has adopted an encouraging policy to attract foreign investment, namely French investments, in a way to achieve the state's strategic goals. And Executive Chairman of the General Authority for Investment and Free Zones, Hossein Heba, witnessed the signing of a strategic cooperation framework agreement between Spain, Turkey Energy Research Center, and an Egyptian company for electrometer to provide advanced technological solution for smart city infrastructure in both countries. Jaffe Executive Chairman reviewed recent reforms in the investment file and incentives offered to foreign businessmen in Egypt, presenting investment opportunities in the free zone nationwide. The agreement is part of a package of cooperation protocols and memoranda of understanding signed with different countries within the state strategy to attract foreign investments into Egypt. Egypt's bourse turned lower at the end of transactions amid local investor and foreign investment funds sell-offs against local and foreign investor purchases. The market capital of listed companies lost some £25 billion to exceed £2.2 trillion Egyptian pounds amid an average trading of £57.8 billion Egyptian pounds. The benchmark index EGX 30 dipped 1.38%, and the equal weighted indices EGX 70 and EGX 100 fell 0.87 and 1.05 respectively. Dear viewers, by that we come to the end of our news bulletin. Thanks for watching and stay tuned for more. Thank you so much.